Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbat, we read the double parasha of Bahar B'chukotai. These two Torah readings taken together conclude the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. So I want to share with you two ideas about two things that happen near the very end of the Torah reading. One is the Tochacha, the list of curses that appears in Parashat B'chukotai near the end of the Torah reading, in the end of the book of Vayikra. And another is what happens at the very end of the book of Vayikra. But first, I want us to take a step back and think about this idea that was first put forward by the late Professor Tikva Freimer-Kensky, a great Bible professor at the University of Chicago. Professor Kensky asked this question: what role does the location of a text play? If a text is in the middle of something, if it's at the end of something, it tells us something. It teaches us about value, about what the writer of that text thinks. So what are we to make, taking that idea, what are we to make of the Tochacha here at the end of the book of Vayikra, or near the end, and then what happens at the very end of the book? The Tochacha is a list of curses that appears here, and then a longer, different version of it appears in the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim as well. This is a list of curses. This is what will happen to us if we do not obey God's commands. So this list of curses comes and teaches us and shares with us these terrifying, awful ideas. Among those ideas, or among the verses that describe to us what will happen to us if we do not obey God's mitzvot, God's commandments, is this verse. With no one pursuing, they shall stumble over one another, they meaning the people of Israel, as before the sword. You shall not be able to stand your ground before your enemies. This is just one example of many verses that tell us terrible things that will happen to us if we do not obey God's command. What is amazing about this verse, though, is what the rabbis do with it. The rabbis take this idea of people stumbling over one another, V'chashlu ish ba'achiv mipnei charev. Okay? And this is what it says. In Masechet Sanhedrin, in the Babylonian Talmud, the Talmud teaches, V'chashlu ish be'achiv, that people shall stumble over one another, ish ba'avon achiv. That teaches that each person is responsible and will be punished not only for their own sins, but for the sins of the person next to them, for the sins of the community. In other words, Milamed shekulan arevim ze bazeh. This teaches that each one of us is a guarantor for the other. Or the way that we speak about it today, each one of us is responsible for the other. This concept is one of the most important ideas in all of Jewish tradition. The notion that the Jewish people are connected, that we have a strong connection, a feeling of being part of one family, of one people, with Jews all over the world, Jews with whom we don't share a common language, Jews whom we have never met, and yet we feel connected. That idea, among other places, comes from here, comes out of the Tochacha, this list of curses, comes out of this verse that says that Jews are stumbling over one another, and yet the rabbis take a step back from it, and they say it doesn't only mean that, it means something more. At the very end of the Torah reading, in the next chapter of Leviticus, we read something else entirely. We read about how items were dedicated to service in the temple, or as goods to be given to God or to the tabernacle or temple service. Those items were called hekdesh. And how did something become holy? Someone declared, this is now hekdesh. You weren't allowed to take it back. This belonged now to the tabernacle, to the priests, and ultimately to God. Thinking again about that idea, about what we learn by the placement of something in a text, what do we learn by the fact that it's these two ideas with which we end the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus? We learn about responsibility. We learn about what it means to understand that we are responsible for each other, that we are responsible for our community, and that we are responsible for bringing holiness into the world. Together, we can make this world a better place. Together, we can raise us up from where we are to where we hope to be. Reading these verses of the Tochacha, of the curses, brings to mind the situation we are in. The pandemic, COVID-19. This idea that we are in the middle of a difficult, challenging, hard time. And yet amidst the pain, amidst all of the difficult moments that we have had over these past 14 months, 15 months, we have also seen that we are responsible for each other. Not only responsible in the sense that when someone is sick, we'll bring over a meal, we'll take care of them, we'll help them, but responsible in the sense that my wearing a mask is not only to protect me, but it's to protect you. My getting vaccinated is not only to protect me, it is to protect you, to protect the stranger. That is what it means to help others. That is what it means to be responsible for each other. For me, this Torah reading has more meaning this year than it has in many, many years. Not because it wasn't meaningful then, but because of the time we live in now, because of the situation we are in, because of what we are dealing with as a community. For all of us, I hope that this is a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of peace, a Shabbat of friends and family and loved ones, a Shabbat where we can take a step back from our usual hustle and bustle and reflect on what we have. Shabbat Shalom.